All right, Mark Rogers TV trying to get to as many positional units across the country as we possibly can, and we couldn't do it without Will Gunter from Fox Sports Radio down in South Carolina to help us break down the Gamecocks. Will, we've talked some defensive line. We've talked linebackers. You feel pretty good about that front seven. Maybe not so much in the secondary, huh?
No, if there's a weakness, if there's going to be a reason South Carolina struggles on defense in 2016, it's going to be the secondary. It's a evolving position throughout the summer. Maybe one more guy, an impact player that could arrive for the summer session. We'll talk about him for summer session too. But this is the scary position, and as Will Muschamp said during spring practice, there were days he thought that himself and Travaris Robinson, defensive coordinator and safeties coach and cornerbacks coach, would maybe have to line up at safety. They're just out of eligibility.
Oh, boy. Well, let's start there then, because you lose Isaiah Johnson. He wrapped up 73 tackles last year. TJ Gurley, really good player, 59 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and a pick. They're gone. So if you can scrounge up some names for us that we can look out for come August, but definitely these guys are going to be scrambling for jobs, so it's going to be a fun August camp in terms of trying to remember these names and figure out who's going to play where in that safety spot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one thing that I've learned in the last 3 years is how important the safety spot is to a college football defense. I don't know if we talk about rushing the passer, we talk about defending the run. South Carolina has lost games strictly because of awful safety play in the last few years. Conceivably, they lost a chance to play for a national championship, Connor Shaw's senior season, because of bad safety play on a long pass down the sidelines late in the ballgame against Tennessee that set up a last-second field goal. 2 years ago, the 7-6 season, they were playing Missouri, and Matty Mock threw one. There was a couple thrown down the sideline, just heaved up where the safety couldn't get there. I think South Carolina fans have become more aware of just how important it is to have quality safeties back there than maybe any other program in the country. Last year, it was not very good again. And in 2016, they're going to have to find somebody. They haven't had a quality safety since DJ Swearinger was roaming the backfield back there 4 years ago. And they enter 2016 with the same problems, looking for guys to step up. There are bodies. Are there quality bodies? Chaz Elder is a senior. They're going to look for him to become the highly recruited, highly rated player that he was when he came out of Georgia. He chose the Gamecocks over the Bulldogs, but because of concussions, has maybe never lived up to the ability. After that, DJ Smith is a junior who is a true junior who may be able to make an impact. Torrey Boyd came to South Carolina as a safety, redshirted last year, was a junior college prospect. After that, again, they're looking for bodies in 2016. If you're a South Carolina fan, this is the position that, again, terrifies you the most, because Travaris Robinson wants to play bump and run coverage. But if you don't have somebody who can cover over the top and make a wide receiver scared to go up and catch the football, that's pretty useless.
Yeah, you need some defensive run support there at safety, but your issue has been the last couple of years, obviously, those 25-yard plays, which you don't want to give up, but at least they're not backbreakers, become 65-yard plays and touchdowns and game changers. Rico McWilliams comes back at cornerback. He's got 20 career games under his belt, no picks. Wrapped up quite a few tackles from the cornerback position, but you're kind of excited about this Jamarcus King and the possibilities there.
Jamarcus King was the number 1 rated defensive back coming out of junior college last year. He was supposed to enroll early back in January and didn't finish up a class. He finally enrolled on Friday, June the 3rd, I believe. So he's in class. People were very excited about that. This is an impact player, 6'1", 180 pounds. People are going to expect him to start right off the bat. And if he starts, what you could potentially have is the ability to move like a Rico McWilliams or a Chris Lamons or a Rashad Fenton to safety. That's going to be something they have to toy with during the fall camp. Jamarcus Russell, there may not be a more important player on the South Carolina defense. I went as far as to say, you and I discussed the loss of Sky Moore and the impact that could have on the defense. I said on my radio show, and I said this on Twitter, if Jamarcus King, I might have called him Jamarcus Russell, and if so, I apologize. If Jamarcus King it did not make it into school, if he had not become eligible, that would have been a much far worse loss for South Carolina's defense in 2016 than Sky Moore. They've got depth at linebacker. They don't have it in the secondary, and this young man's going to have to live up to that highly thought of recruiting ranking coming out of junior college for South Carolina to have an impact. So he is the prime player you have to watch in the fall camp and in the early part of the season, because if he can take that position, if he can start, it gives them just a little flexibility to toy around with other players.
Will Gunter from Fox Sports Radio joining us. And just to emphasize the point you just made, you can look at this two ways, that Jamarcus King isn't going to be quite as crucial because of what I'm just going to state, or maybe he's even more crucial because your defensive secondary play doesn't have to be great to be able to get by these teams. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, new quarterback. East Carolina can always sling it around a little bit, but they're not as good as they were a couple years ago. Kentucky, we know the situation there. Patrick Toll's gone. Texas A&M had a great quarterback situation last year, lost their two best, still very talented at wide receiver, but they're going to sort things out at quarterback with Trevor Knight coming in from Oklahoma. Georgia hasn't had the game changers on the outside that they've had in previous years. Probably the best passing offense to date. That's through 6 games. UMass, Tennessee, they're going to hit you with the best playmakers on the outside by far of any of these teams. Mizzou, Florida, again, good playmakers. Antonio Callaway's status is still up in the air, but they haven't solved it at quarterback, and they have a new signal caller. Western Carolina, and then you face Deshaun Watson. So very manageable from a pass defensive standpoint if you look at an SEC schedule here.
I'm gonna box you up and take you around with my backup voice. I've been screaming that. What you just said, I have been screaming that. I have a bold prediction. People think I'm an insane person. People are making bets with me left and right. It is bold. You have the numbers. We've seen the numbers. South Carolina's defense has stunk for 2 years. I think they've been 90th, 95th in total defense. The secondary has depth problems, but what you just said has been my point. Number one, I think there's talent at defensive line and linebacker, and they do have a couple players in the secondary. They've got to get better. Chris Lamons is number one, highly recruited, got a lot better as the season went on. Jamarcus King is coming in. There's a chance they could add a former big-time player in J.C. Jackson, who was a 5-star recruit coming out of Immokalee, Florida a few years ago. He went and signed with Will Muschamp. He was slated to be a starter as a redshirt freshman and got into some trouble, was charged with an armed robbery. He was acquitted. He's at Riverside Community College in California. There's a good chance he's going to follow his former coach, Will Muschamp, to South Carolina. They'll have a couple guys. It's not very deep in the secondary. But what you just pointed out has been what I've been trying to scream, and why I'm making the bold prediction that South Carolina's defense will be a top 4 defense in the SEC in 2016, because what you just said, they play 2 quarterbacks, Josh Dobbs and Deshaun Watson. Mississippi State breaks in a new quarterback. Drew Barker has only started 3 games. East Carolina's quarterback transferred. Vanderbilt, Kyle Shermer, started 4 games last year. Texas A&M, we don't know what we're getting with Trevor Knight. We assume Georgia's going to go with Jacob Eason. We don't know what we're getting with him. Drew Lockett, Missouri, has a long way to go. Florida and Luke Del Rio, we'll see what happens. I mean, there are so many unknowns on South Carolina's schedule at the quarterback position. And by the way, Georgia's in Columbia. Texas A&M is in Columbia. Missouri is – you talk about some of these quarterbacks coming into Williams-Brice Stadium, I think it sets up well. And so you're right. The secondary could be bailed out a little bit by young or inexperienced quarterbacks who have to come to Williams-Brice Stadium and play that defense, which I think is going to be much better, although they do lack some depth in certain spots, especially the secondary.
Yeah, if you're going to run into an Alabama fan on the street, he's going to overrate Trevor Knight because he played out of his mind the best game of his career in that Sugar Bowl game 2 years ago against the Crimson Tide when they put up 45 points. But besides that, I've seen Trevor Knight play plenty of football, and he's a marginal quarterback. Yeah, as soon as you mentioned cornerback being thin, you need Jamarcus King. I thought, man, I want to see what quarterbacks they're playing because I know there's only two returning in the SEC, and you're not playing Ole Miss. So that's the deal right there. It's not scary. Sure, there's always talent at wide receiver in the SEC, but I don't know if there's the guys that can deliver the ball to them. Those are not scary passing attacks until game 12.
Yeah, and with Kentucky, they're bringing in new offensive coordinators, Eddie Gran and I forget Henshaw's first name, or Henson's first name. For all of a sudden, I forget the co-offensive coordinator with the Wildcats, who's there with Eddie Gran. Drew Barker, they're supposed to bring in more of a pro-style offense as opposed to the air raid that was being run previously. We'll see how that affects them. Again, Missouri, that's the other thing now. What are we going to get from Kirby Smart? Him bringing in Jim Chaney as an offensive coordinator, Barry Odom with give me the offensive coordinator, the former quarterback at Heupel, with Josh Heupel as his offensive coordinator. So, I think that's one thing you have to take into account with South Carolina in 2016. I personally have said I don't think the schedule. You look at the names. I don't think the schedule's as daunting as it was in 2015. There's a lot of question marks. Now, they just released the first 3 games of the season, the start times. The one that jumped out at me was going to Starkville for a night game. You get the cowbells clanging and all the things going on there. South Carolina itself could have a new quarterback. That's a whole other set of issues we'll get into at a later date. But that secondary is going to have to prove itself. That's going to be the Achilles heel of the defense in 2016. Now, the good news is your head coach and your defensive coordinator are in charge of those positions. So I don't think they're going to stand pat and allow the football to be thrown over the heads of the cornerbacks and the safeties all season long. They'll figure out something by game 6 or 7.
Will Gunter joins us from Fox Sports Radio there in Columbia and Greenville, South Carolina. Will, I like to keep up with just about everybody I possibly can, so I appreciate the personnel breakdown.
Oh, anytime. It's a lot of fun. We're not far away. We're inside of 80 days. California and Hawaii and Sydney, and then South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and Appalachian State on a Thursday night. And that's just an appetizer for the best weekend of college football that I've ever seen. I'm 34 years of age. That first weekend's exciting. So to start talking college football is a great time.
Yeah, if you just stay in the SEC, you're good with Alabama, USC, LSU, Wisconsin, Ole Miss, Florida State. It's really good time, no doubt about it. All right, Will, thanks.
Always great. Take care.